Thanks to Hal for sponsoring this video. They're a brand new awesome Rust gambling website with games such as Jackpot, Coinflip, and a new game mode called The Wheel. For a limited time, you can get a 50% bonus when depositing with gift cards, and they have a daily free case where you can win up to $700. Make sure to use my code Tamura for a free 50 cents and check it out in the link down below. Hello and welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a complete bow guide, everything you need to know about mastering the weapon. So starting out with the basics, of course everyone knows that to shoot the bow you hold down your right click and then left click to release an arrow. But if you want to increase the amount of arrows that you're getting off per second, you never want to let go of your right click, as you can just hold this down and then spam left click when the draw animation comes to a close. And unlike other weapons, movement is almost just as important as your aim. If you stand still whilst you're having a bow fight, then you're going to be a sitting duck and it's a lot easier to land shots on you. When you're first learning how to PvP with the bow, moving left to right is probably the best thing you can do just to get yourself warmed up with shooting whilst moving. It's pretty predictable for more advanced players, however it's definitely better than nothing. And whilst I say that movement is extremely important, it's more important to be accurate, so don't overcomplicate your movement, especially when you're first starting out. Oftentimes I'll see newer players try and copy streamer movement when they're using the bow, and it'll just overcomplicate it to the point where their arrows will be missing. So when you're first learning, stick to the small things like the side to side and keeping true to your aim. Once you've got the basics down packed, there's a few minor tweaks you can do to your movement in order to make yourself more evasive. The first and most obvious one is to throw in a few crouches every now and then. When you're in a bow fight, most of the time you're going to be going for headshots, and so is the enemy. By constantly crouching, you'll be throwing off your enemy's crosshair placement and effectively making it so that they have to flick shot in order to land consistent headshots. Another thing to keep in mind is how far you're actually moving left and right. Let's say for example that you strafe 25 centimeters to the right and then coming back you move another 50 centimeters. You keep this pattern up so you're essentially moving 50 centimeters every single strafe. It becomes really predictable as to where you're going, and more experienced players will be able to figure this out very quickly and then land easy shots. What in fact is more beneficial is to make your movements randomized. You might start off by going 25 centimeters to the left, then moving a full 50 centimeters to the right, coming back 20 centimeters to the left, then stopping, coming another 10 centimeters, then switching it up and going 20 centimeters to the right. It's all about keeping it randomized to throw your enemies off. This one kind of goes without saying, but as you get more into the bow, you always want to be going for headshots unless you know that the opponent is one hit. The bow shots just don't do enough damage to ever justify not going for the headshots in order to secure a kill. The next thing is something that I don't actually see talked about too much, and it's keeping consistency with how you shoot. It's something that I picked up upon earlier, but it's not something that I see many other players do. What I mean by this is generally when I shoot my bow, I try and shoot it as I'm strafing right to left and not the other way around. Essentially what I'm doing by this is training my muscle memory in order to left click as soon as the arrow crosses over the head as I'm going from right to left. And because this is the only way that I shoot, I don't have to worry about it when I'm going left to right, and it means that I can train my muscle memory twice as fast. A good analogy is the common arcade game where you have to stack the blocks. A really good strategy for this game is to stack them in the corner, as this way you can line it up and time it more accurately. Whereas if you try and make the stack in the middle, it means that you're constantly having to switch from left to right, and it's just not a good strategy. That being said, you don't have to do it my way and only shoot when you're strafing from one direction, but if you've never tried it out, maybe give it a go and see if it improves your consistency. The next intermediate skill that you should definitely learn is delaying the bow shot. Normally when you're chasing someone you move really slowly because you have to be walking in order to shoot the bow. However, if you delay your shot, you can actually get a little bit of a sprint in every single time you fire. To do this technique, you'll need to hold down your right click for 1 second and then let go of it. Wait for about half a second and then hold down right click and left click at the same time to shoot. During that brief half a second after you initially let go of the right click, you'll be able to sprint at full speed. So you'll get fewer arrows off per second, but you'll be able to maintain your speed whilst on a chase. Similar to the running shot, we have the jump shot, which is essentially the same thing, except instead of sprinting before you shoot, you jump. This is really beneficial for when you're hiding behind cover, as this is all the opponent can see when they're trying to shoot back at you. It's a skill that takes a while to develop, but it's definitely worth it in the long run. Something to keep in mind though is that you don't want to be excessively jump shooting when you're in a 1v1 in open fields, as when you're on the decline from your jump, it's really easy to predict where you're going to land, so I'd only really recommend jump shotting when you're behind cover. You can take this a step further and actually jump shot around corners. This makes it extremely hard for the enemy to shoot back, as this is their perspective when you're peeking. Predicting where your head is going to be when coming around the corner is extremely difficult if you can pull this method off successfully. And another way to make your movement even more difficult to trace is by combining the running shot with your strafing. Obviously when you're strafing left to right normally, you do it at a walking pace, but if you combine the running shot, you can actually sprint, making it really difficult to shoot you. Most experienced players will combine the running shot with the crouch and the unpredictable movement from side to side, and maybe even throw in a jump shot every now and then, but like I said earlier, you don't want to throw in too many jump shots. And the final technique I have for you guys is abusing your alt key to look over ledges and then transitioning into a jump shot. I have another video on my channel which goes a little bit more in depth into all the things you can do with alt keying, but essentially what we're doing is looking down at our feet and then alt looking up, so that when we peek over ledges our head doesn't actually show. You can combine this with a jump so that it's a little bit easier to see more, and then as soon as you know the location of your enemy, you can transition into a jump shot in order to confuse them whilst displaying very little of your body in the process. And this doesn't just have to be for when you're at the top of a hill, you can also use this to scout over ledges when you have the low ground. The exact same rules apply, where you want to look down and then alt look up in order to try and scout out your enemy and then transition into a jump shot. And that's all the information I have for you guys today. If you have any more information or tips, feel free to leave them down in the comments. Thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.